Do heaven and hell exist?
Yes and no. No, heaven and hell don't exist as substantial, self-existing, real things. But then nor does anything else. And yes, they do exist. I can only speak from my experience. And they exist in two ways. Heaven and hell, it is often said, can be found in this very moment right here on earth. There are places now, if you were coming from Syria through Europe, you know, with thousands of people of freezing cold, not knowing what your future is, damage to your feet, you'd be feeling pretty hellish. Or if you were in anywhere where there's war and no food. And heaven, you know, fabulous places in India and Bali and this beautiful world, totally heavenly. And people experiencing heavenly states, and people experiencing hellish states of consciousness. So it does exist in that way, or at least it appears to, and you experience it as existing. One time, though, the real question is, after death, does it exist? Is there hell after death? Is there heaven after death? Which is a very dominant idea in many of the major faiths. In Buddhism, there is. In Islam, there is. In Christianity, there is. In Judaism, there is. In fact, it's hard to find a religion or a belief that doesn't really incorporate that. And even quantum physics is now beginning to think that we might exist in some kind of quantum state after we leave the body. In my experience of this life, I've experienced both heaven and hell outside of this world. One time I had a dream in which some Tibetan monks came, and they took me to a skyscraper, and we went in the main foyer, and there was the lift. So pressed the button, door opened, me and these three monks got in the lift, we went up, reached a certain level, and then on the other side the doors opened. And there, under an enormous red sky, were innumerable, I mean millions, of naked people covered in what looked like semen, engaging in every conceivable sexual act. And there was this sound of like an enormous orgasm, multiple simultaneous orgasm was about to occur for these millions and millions and millions of people. And I had this thought as I looked at it, this must be heaven. And then behind me, this Rinpoche coughs. And I hear a voice going, "Look closer." And as I look closer, I realise that these people have been waiting for this orgasm, the ultimate orgasm, forever. They can't even remember how they got there. They don't even know what they're doing there. And the sound is not one of ecstasy, it's one of hell. And these people are trapped in a timeless dimension. And at that point, the door closed and the dream ended. And then another time, I had been in the Himalayas and I had this dream. I'd been attending a teaching with the Dalai Lama. And in the dream, I have a problem that I have to solve. So I really work out this problem, thinking very, very hard and get it all clear. But when I get to the end of the problem, I realise, oh my God, I didn't need to go there at all. Oh dear. But then I immediately forget and go back to the beginning, start thinking about it all again. And the dimension that I was in, again, was timeless. It didn't start, it didn't end. I just found myself in it. And when I finally left, I just left it. These are hell realms. When my dad died, I experienced him as a hungry ghost. So he still had his body. He was wearing his blazer and his hair was sort of sticking out and he's hollow-cheeked. And he was holding a glass of lager, which was golden and sparkling, a pint of lager. And I came in and there were all these people standing around him. I said, Dad, what are you doing here? He said, I'm just waiting for my friends. I said, Dad, you can't be here. They're not coming. You can't drink that lager. You must go on. You must go on. And then afterwards, sometime I saw him again. And he was looking for meat. And not in a good space, in a really deluded. And in that experience, in that dream, he seemed to be in a particular realm, which as a hungry ghost. Later it was all good and he went on and he hit the light and it all went on. So in my experience, yes, there is heaven and hell. And they are projections of the mind. But then it may be said that the entire experience of form is a projection of the mind. So it doesn't really help. So while we're here on earth, we need to get really clear about what is real and what is a projection of the mind. Also, on another occasion, I experienced, I'll just say it simply, I experienced my third eye opening here, and a particle of light coming up from here. My spirit ascended through the inner gate. The gate opened, went down a wormhole, and came out in a heavenly realm, in another body, in another time. And there was the most wonderful things happening there, which I won't go into right now, but the most wonderful things. Heaven. The atmosphere filled with wonderful sounds, rose petals falling, sweet smells, everybody looking absolutely beautiful, full of joy, great celebration, feeling of victory and great wonder. And I was there for a minute and I came back. So in my experience, yes, heaven and hell do exist, but as projections of the mind. But some of these, if you research into the scriptures, some of these heaven realms you can be in for a very, very, very long time. How to get there, if you're interested, is to accumulate what can be accumulated in meditation. There's something that can be gathered in meditation. This light can be gathered in meditation whilst in a human body right here. And depending on how we understand ourselves and life, that determines how it turns up for us. But the point is really not to aim for heaven or avoid hell, but to really be clear about what is actually real, what is unchanging. In what domain does the whole thing take place in? Who am I beyond my access to heaven or hell? When I saw those hellish states, when I visited them, I realized that they were propensities that I'd been developing. And the same with the heaven. So they're kind of generated. And, you know, these are just my experiences which I may have interpreted wrongly. We don't know. But there is consequence. If you think in a particular way intensely for all your life, that will build a momentum in that direction. You know, it brings us on to the issue of pornography. It's an astral realm. It becomes an astral realm. So much energy pumping into it that it becomes a realm. And then at the time of death, people don't know where to go to. So they get drawn to what they love and they run from what they fear, which kind of attracts it to them. So it's important not to waste time. It's important to know the light. It's important to recognize how and practice here on earth putting everything down so that you can return to your essential basic self as awareness. So in my view, heaven and hell do exist in a relative kind of way as projections of my mind.